They said my father left me just debts, 30 days to pay or lose everything. But Rusty wouldn't stop digging. 3 days straight, the German Shepherd had been clawing at the same spot in the barn's upper floor, his nails scraping against old wooden planks with mechanical persistence. Every time Dakota Reeves pulled him away, the dog returned within minutes, whining and pawing at boards that looked identical to every other board in the century-old structure. Dakota wiped sweat from his forehead and checked his phone. Another missed call from Vernon Shaw at First National Bank. The foreclosure notice sat on his kitchen table, along with medical bills that would take him a lifetime to pay. His father's final months had cost more than the ranch made in 5 years. Shaw's voicemail was direct. Final notice, Dakota. Bank policy requires settlement within 30 days, or we proceed with seizure of assets. Call me back. The Reeves family ranch had survived 4 generations, 2 droughts, and a tornado that leveled half the county. Now it was about to disappear, because his father had apparently spent his final years drowning in debt instead of managing the property. At least, that's what the paperwork showed. Rusty's barking echoed from the barn again, more urgent this time. Dakota grabbed his work gloves and headed outside, wondering if the dog had finally lost his mind. When he climbed the wooden ladder to the barn's upper floor, Rusty was still focused on the same section of planking, now digging with both front paws like his life depended on reaching whatever lay beneath. What's got into you, boy? Dakota knelt beside the dog and examined the floorboards more carefully. They looked solid enough, weathered gray wood that matched the rest of the structure. But something felt different about this particular spot. The wood seemed slightly newer, or maybe it was just fitted differently than the surrounding planks. Dakota pressed his palm against the boards. They felt loose, not rotted or damaged, just not quite secured as tightly as they should have been. Almost like someone had removed them before and replaced them without getting the fit exactly right. But that was impossible. His father had never mentioned doing any repair work on the barn floor. Rusty looked up at him with intelligent brown eyes and barked once, as if trying to communicate something urgent. Then he went back to digging, his claws scratching against wood with renewed determination. Whatever was down there, the dog was absolutely certain it needed to be found. Dakota reached for his toolbox, his mind racing. The foreclosure deadline was 27 days away. Shaw had made it clear that the bank wouldn't extend the timeline for any reason. Every hour mattered now, and here he was chasing his dog's mysterious obsession with loose floorboards. But as he positioned the crowbar between the planks, Dakota realized this might be the first time Rusty had ever been wrong about anything important. The dog had found lost cattle, detected storms hours before they hit, and once led Dakota's father to a broken fence that would have cost them half the herd. If Rusty thought something was hidden under these boards, maybe it was worth 30 minutes to find out what. The first plank lifted easier than expected, revealing darkness beneath that definitely hadn't been part of the barn's original construction. Rusty immediately stuck his nose into the gap, tail wagging frantically. The dog had found exactly what he'd been looking for. Dakota's phone rang again. Shaw's name flashed on the screen. But this time Dakota didn't answer. Something told him the next few minutes were about to change everything he thought he knew about his father's financial situation. Dakota pried up 3 more boards, creating an opening large enough to see inside. His phone's flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating something that made his breath catch in his throat. A metal strongbox sat nestled in a custom-built compartment between the floor joists, wrapped in waterproof canvas. Next to it lay a thick manila envelope with Dakota written across the front in his father's careful handwriting. His hand shook as he lifted out the envelope first. The paper felt substantial, like it contained more than just a letter. Inside, he found a brass key and a single folded document. The letter was dated just 3 months before his father's death. Written in the same steady handwriting Dakota remembered from birthday cards and school permission slips. Son, if you're reading this, it means Rusty did his job. I trained that dog to find this spot if anything happened to me. The bills you're seeing aren't the whole story. I had to make it look like we were broke so certain people wouldn't come looking for what's really here. Vernon Shaw has been pressuring ranchers to sell for years, offering pennies on the dollar because he thinks we're all desperate. I couldn't let him know what this land is really worth. Dakota read the letter twice before the words fully registered. His father had intentionally created the appearance of financial ruin. The medical bills, the bank loans, even the foreclosure notice might all be part of an elaborate deception designed to protect something valuable. The letter continued. The key opens the strongbox. Inside you'll find proof that everything Shaw told us about the ranch's value was a lie. But be careful who you trust with this information. Shaw isn't working alone, and he's been watching this property for longer than you realize. Dakota's phone rang, jarring him from the letter. Vernon Shaw's name flashed on the screen. He answered on the third ring, trying to keep his voice steady. Dakota, I know this is difficult, but I need to schedule the property assessment for tomorrow morning. The bank requires it before we can finalize the foreclosure process. I'll be out around 9. Actually, Mr. Shaw, I might need to postpone that. I'm going through some of my father's papers and there might be some assets we overlooked. A long pause. What kind of assets? Dakota looked down at the strongbox, still unopened. I'm not sure yet. I'll call you back when I know more. The bank doesn't typically allow delays once the final notice is issued. I hope you understand my position here. After hanging up, Dakota fitted the brass key into the strongbox lock. The mechanism turned easily, suggesting the box had been well maintained despite years of hiding. But before he could lift the lid, Rusty's ears perked toward the barn's main door. Car tires crunched on gravel outside, and Dakota realized Shaw's call hadn't been a coincidence. Dakota? Shaw's voice carried up from the barnyard below. Your truck's here, so I know you're around somewhere. I thought we should talk before tomorrow's assessment. Dakota quickly lowered the strongbox back into its hiding spot and replaced one of the floorboards. Shaw wasn't supposed to be here until tomorrow. The banker's unscheduled visit meant he suspected Dakota had found something, and he was coming to see what it was before the official assessment could document it. But why was Vernon Shaw so interested in what a supposedly broke rancher might have hidden in his barn? Dakota carefully placed the loose floorboards back over the hiding spot, making sure they looked undisturbed. Rusty whined softly, sensing the tension in the air. Vernon Shaw's footsteps echoed as he climbed the ladder to the barn's upper level, each step deliberate and measured. There you are. Shaw appeared at the top of the ladder, slightly out of breath. He wore his usual press shirt and tie, completely inappropriate for barn exploring, but his eyes were scanning the space with unusual interest. Working on repairs? That's admirable, though I'm not sure it's the best use of your time given the circumstances. Just checking some loose boards Rusty found. Dakota kept his voice steady, positioning himself between Shaw and the hidden compartment. You said you were coming tomorrow. Change of plans. The bank's board is meeting tonight about several properties in foreclosure. I wanted to give you one last chance to discuss alternatives. Shaw walked slowly around the upper floor, his expensive shoes clicking against the old wood. This is a beautiful old barn. Shame to see it torn down when the land gets developed. Developed for what? Oh, you know how it is these days. Rural land near the highway has all sorts of potential. Strip malls, storage facilities, that kind of thing. Shaw paused near the section where Dakota had been working. These floorboards look like they've seen some attention recently. Dakota's pulse quickened. Like I said, just checking for loose spots. Safety first. Shaw knelt and pressed his hand against the same boards Dakota had just replaced. Funny thing about old barns. Sometimes people stored valuables up here during the Depression. Family heirlooms, important documents, things they didn't trust to banks. He looked up at Dakota with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Your father ever mention finding anything interesting when he did maintenance? My father wasn't much for treasure hunting. Dakota helped Rusty down the ladder and started toward the barn door. Was there something specific you needed to discuss about the foreclosure? Shaw followed but kept glancing back at the upper floor. Actually, there's something I should mention. The bank's title search turned up some irregularities in your property records. It seems your father might have filed some additional claims or surveys in recent years that weren't properly recorded with the county. Dakota stopped walking. What kind of claims? Mineral rights surveys. Mostly. Probably nothing significant, but the bank likes to be thorough. These rural properties sometimes have old claims that complicate ownership. I'd hate for you to get caught up in legal complications on top of your financial difficulties. The way Shaw said it made Dakota's skin crawl. It sounded less like helpful advice and more like a fishing expedition. I don't know anything about mineral rights. Of course not. But if any documentation turns up, you'd want to have it properly evaluated. Some of these old surveys can actually increase property values significantly if they're legitimate. Shaw pulled out his business card and wrote a number on the back. This is a colleague of mine who specializes in mineral rights assessments. Very discreet. Very thorough. If you happen to find anything like that among your father's papers, give him a call before you do anything else. Dakota pocketed the card without looking at it. I'll keep that in mind. Good. Now, about tomorrow's assessment. I'll need access to all buildings on the property, including storage areas, outbuildings, and any spaces that might contain assets we haven't accounted for. Standard procedure. You understand. As Shaw drove away, Dakota realized the banker's unscheduled visit wasn't coincidence. Someone had told him to come looking for something specific. But who knew about his father's hidden assets? And why was Shaw so interested in mineral rights documentation? Dakota climbed back up to the barn's upper floor and carefully removed the floorboards again. Inside the envelope, he found a document that made his blood run cold. It was a mineral rights lease agreement with Shaw's name listed not as a bank representative, but as a private investor, trying to purchase the rights for a fraction of their actual value. His father hadn't just been hiding assets from creditors. He'd been protecting them from Vernon Shaw himself. Dakota spent the night reading every document in his father's hidden collection. The mineral rights survey revealed natural gas deposits worth over $2 million. The land deeds showed 3 additional properties his father had quietly purchased over the years, all connected to the main ranch by underground gas lines that Dakota had never noticed. But the most shocking discovery was a series of recorded phone conversations his father had saved on an old digital recorder. Vernon Shaw's voice came through clearly on the first recording. "Listen, Tom, I know times are tough. Medical bills are eating you alive. But I can make this easy for you. Sign over the mineral rights to me personally, and I'll make sure the bank forgives your debts. Your son will inherit a clean property with no complications." His father's response was calm, but firm. "The mineral rights stay with my family. Vernon, that land has been ours for 4 generations. You're being stubborn about something your son doesn't even know exists. He'll lose everything anyway when you're gone. At least this way he gets something. Dakota gets what belongs to him. Not what you think he deserves." Dakota fast-forwarded through several similar conversations, each one showing Shaw becoming more aggressive about acquiring the rights. The final recording was dated just 2 weeks before his father's death. "Tom, I'm trying to help you here. The bank wants their money. If I don't get those mineral rights, I can't protect your son from foreclosure. Then don't protect him. Dakota's stronger than you think. Strong doesn't pay bank loans. No, but intelligent planning does. And I've been planning for this conversation longer than you realize." At dawn, Dakota loaded Rusty into his pickup truck and drove to see Cordelia Hayes at her veterinary clinic. He needed someone he could trust, and Cordelia had been his father's closest friend since childhood. Her clinic sat at the edge of town, a converted farmhouse where she treated everything from prize bulls to family pets. "Dakota, you look like you haven't slept." Cordelia emerged from the back room wearing surgical scrubs, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She had intelligent green eyes that missed nothing, and right now they were focused on the manila envelope he carried. "I found something at the ranch, something my father hid." He handed her the mineral rights documents. "I need someone to help me understand what this means legally." Cordelia spread the papers across her examination table, studying them with the same careful attention she gave to X-rays. "These surveys are recent. Your father hired a professional geological company." She looked up at him with surprise. "Dakota, if these numbers are accurate, your ranch is sitting on a fortune. Vernon Shaw knows about it. He's been trying to get my father to sign over the rights for months. That explains why he's been so eager to foreclose. He's not representing the bank's interests. He's representing his own." Cordelia pulled out her phone. "I'm calling my cousin Marcus. He's a lawyer who specializes in mineral rights disputes." While she made the call, Dakota noticed movement outside the clinic window. A black sedan had pulled into the parking lot, and Vernon Shaw was getting out of the driver's seat. He wasn't alone. A large man in an expensive suit accompanied him, someone Dakota had never seen before. "Cordelia," Dakota interrupted her phone conversation. "We have a problem." Shaw approached the clinic's front door with confident strides, but something in his posture suggested this wasn't a social visit. The stranger stayed by the car, arms crossed, watching the building like he was expecting trouble. Cordelia quickly gathered the documents. "Back door. Now." But as they headed toward the rear exit, Dakota heard Shaw's voice through the front door. "Cordelia? I know Dakota's truck is outside. We just want to have a friendly conversation about some paperwork that might have gone missing." Cordelia led Dakota through the back door and around to where her own truck was parked behind the clinic. They could hear Shaw trying the front door handle, then knocking with increasing persistence. "Leave the documents with me," she whispered, tucking the envelope inside her jacket. If he searches you, he won't find anything. Dakota helped Rusty into Cordelia's truck bed, just as Shaw's voice carried around the building. Check the back. His truck's still here, so they didn't go far. They drove in silence for several minutes before Cordelia spoke. There's something you should know about Vernon Shaw. My father used to do business with him years ago, before Shaw worked at the bank. He was a private land speculator who made his money buying up struggling ranches for cheap, then reselling them to development companies. What changed? He got caught bribing a county assessor to undervalue properties so he could buy them below market rate, lost his real estate license, and had to take the bank job to stay in business. But he never stopped looking for angles. Dakota's phone buzzed with a text message. "Unknown number," he told Cordelia, then read the message aloud. "Your father kept records of more than just mineral rights. Meet at the old grain elevator at noon if you want to see them. Come alone." That's got to be a trap. Maybe. But what if it's not? Dakota stared at the phone screen. What if my father had backup plans I don't know about? Cordelia pulled into the parking lot of a diner 20 miles outside town. Let's think this through. Shaw shows up at your ranch asking about surveys. Then he comes to my clinic looking for paperwork. Now someone's claiming to have more records. Either it's Shaw trying to lure you into a meeting, or someone else knows about your father's hidden assets. The grain elevator's been abandoned for years. Perfect place for an ambush. Or perfect place for someone to hide something without being seen. Cordelia turned in her seat to face him. Dakota, your father was the most careful planner I ever knew. If he left a trail of clues, there's a reason for each one. Inside the diner, they ordered coffee and studied a county map Cordelia kept in her truck. The old grain elevator sat on the border between 3 different properties, all of them currently for sale through Shaw's bank. Look at this, Cordelia pointed to the map. If someone owned all 3 of these properties plus your ranch, they'd control access to the entire gas field. Shaw's been trying to buy more than just my mineral rights. He's been trying to buy the whole area, but he can't make it work unless he gets your ranch too. Your property is right in the middle of everything. She traced her finger along the property lines. Without your land, the other properties are worthless for gas extraction. Dakota's phone rang. Vernon Shaw's name appeared on the screen. Answer it, Cordelia urged. Act like you don't know anything. Dakota, I stopped by the clinic looking for you. Cordelia said you'd left some paperwork with her for safekeeping. I'd like to take a look at those documents before tomorrow's assessment. What paperwork? Don't play games with me, son. Your father had more than just debts, and we both know it. The bank needs to inventory all assets before we can proceed with the foreclosure. I'll bring whatever I have to tomorrow's meeting. I think it would be better if we handled this privately. The bank doesn't need to know about every little detail of your father's estate planning. After hanging up, Dakota realized Shaw had just confirmed something important. The banker wasn't acting on behalf of the bank at all. He was trying to keep the bank from learning about the mineral rights because he wanted them for himself. But as they prepared to leave the diner, Dakota noticed the same black sedan from the clinic parked across the street. The large man in the expensive suit was sitting behind the wheel, and he was watching them through binoculars. Dakota decided to meet whoever had sent the message. Against Cordelia's protests, he drove alone to the abandoned grain elevator, while she stayed behind to contact her lawyer cousin. The massive concrete structure loomed against the afternoon sky, its windows broken and weeds growing through cracks in the foundation. Dakota parked behind the building and waited. A pickup truck approached from the opposite direction. An elderly man climbed out, moving carefully but with purpose. Dakota recognized him as Earl Martinez, who had worked for his father years ago before retiring to a small farm outside town. Your dad told me to watch for trouble after he was gone, Earl said without preamble. When I saw Shaw's car following you around town, I figured it was time to make contact. You sent the message? Tom asked me to keep an eye on things. He knew Shaw would come sniffing around once the foreclosure notice went out. Earl reached into his truck and pulled out a weathered canvas bag. Your father didn't trust banks, especially not Shaw's bank. He gave me this to hold until you needed it. Inside the bag, Dakota found what his father's letter had only hinted at. Gold coins, dozens of them, each one carefully wrapped and dated. But more importantly, he found deed documents for 3 additional properties his father had purchased quietly over the past 5 years. All of them bordered the main ranch, and all of them had been bought through shell companies to avoid attracting attention. How much is this worth? Dakota asked, holding up one of the gold coins. Enough to pay off every debt your family has and still have money left over. But that's not the real treasure. Earl pointed to the property deeds. Tom figured out that the whole area sits on top of natural gas deposits. He spent years buying up the surrounding land piece by piece, using different names and companies so nobody would notice the pattern. Dakota studied the documents. The shell companies all traced back to his father, but the paperwork was complex enough that it would take months for anyone to connect them to the Reeves family ranch. Why all the secrecy? Because Shaw's been trying to assemble the same package for his own investors. Your father found out about Shaw's plan 3 years ago and decided to beat him at his own game. Earl pulled out a geological survey report. This shows the natural gas field extends under all 4 properties. Without your ranch in the middle, the other 3 pieces are worthless for extraction. But with all 4 properties under one owner, you're looking at millions in mineral rights. Dakota's phone buzzed with a text from Cordelia. Shaw's at the clinic again with 2 men this time. They're asking questions about you and searching the parking area. We need to move fast, Earl said. Your father had a backup plan if Shaw got too aggressive. There's a lawyer in the state capitol who's been holding sealed documents for 2 years. If anything happens to you or if Shaw tries to force the foreclosure through illegal means, those documents get released to the state attorney general's office. What kind of documents? Evidence that Shaw's been using his position at the bank to manipulate property values and force sales to his private investment group. Your father wasn't the only rancher Shaw targeted, but he was the first one smart enough to document everything. As they loaded the canvas bag into Dakota's truck, Earl grabbed his arm. Be careful who you trust from here on out. Shaw's got people watching and he's getting desperate. A desperate man with millions at stake will do things a normal banker wouldn't consider. Dakota drove back toward town with his father's hidden assets secure in his truck, but also with the growing realization that he'd inherited more than just a ranch and some debts. He'd inherited a war that had been brewing for years, and Vernon Shaw wasn't going to give up without a fight. Dakota found Cordelia waiting at her clinic with her cousin Marcus, a sharp-eyed lawyer who had driven down from the state capitol. The documents from Earl's canvas bag were spread across the examination table like pieces of a complex puzzle finally coming together. This changes everything, Marcus said, studying the property deeds. Your father assembled one of the largest private mineral rights packages in the county. With current natural gas prices, we're looking at potential revenue streams worth $8 to $10 million over the next decade. Dakota felt the weight of those numbers. His father hadn't just left him enough money to pay off debts. He'd left him enough wealth to transform the entire family's future. But first, they had to survive Vernon Shaw's attempts to steal it. Shaw's getting more aggressive, Cordelia reported. After you left, he came back with a locksmith and tried to get into the clinic's files. I called the sheriff, but Shaw claimed he had a warrant to search for stolen bank property. Marcus frowned. Did he actually have a warrant? Sheriff Rodriguez said the paperwork looked official, but something felt wrong about it. He told Shaw to come back tomorrow with proper authorization. Dakota's phone rang. Shaw's name appeared on the screen, but this time when Dakota answered, the banker's tone was completely different. Gone was the polite professionalism. Now Shaw sounded like a man whose patience had run out. I know what you found in that barn, Dakota. Your father thought he was being clever, but I've been tracking his shell company purchases for 2 years. Those property deeds don't mean anything if you can't prove legal ownership. The deeds are all properly filed with the county clerk. Paperwork can disappear. Computer records can get corrupted. Accidents happen all the time in small county offices. Shaw's voice carried an unmistakable threat. But we don't have to go down that road. I'm prepared to offer you a fair settlement. $200,000 for the mineral rights to all 4 properties. That's more than enough to cover your debts and give you a fresh start somewhere else. Dakota looked at Marcus, who was shaking his head vigorously. The lawyer quickly wrote on a piece of paper, worth 50 times that amount. I'll need time to think about it, Dakota said. Time is something you don't have. The foreclosure hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning, and I've already filed the paperwork with the court. Unless you accept my offer tonight, you'll lose everything anyway. After Shaw hung up, Marcus explained the legal reality. He's lying about the hearing date. Foreclosure proceedings require 30 days' notice, and you've only had the property for a week since your father's death. But he's right that paperwork can disappear if he has people in the right places. What do? We move first. I'm driving back to the Capitol tonight to file emergency injunctions with the state court. This will freeze any foreclosure actions and launch an investigation into Shaw's business practices. Marcus gathered the documents. Your father was smart to keep copies of everything with my firm. Even if Shaw destroys the county records, we have backups that will hold up in federal court. As Marcus prepared to leave, Cordelia pointed out the clinic window. That black sedan is back. Same car that was following you earlier. Dakota realized they were past the point of hiding. Shaw knew about the mineral rights, knew about the additional properties, and was probably tracking their every move. Tomorrow would bring either complete victory or total defeat, depending on who could make their move first. There's one more thing your father left for you, Marcus said, handing Dakota a sealed envelope. He said to open this only if Shaw forced a direct confrontation. I think we've reached that point. Inside the envelope, Dakota found a single sheet of paper with an address in town and a simple message. Time to end this where it started. The address led Dakota to Shaw's own bank. At dawn, he stood across the street from First National with Cordelia and Earl, watching federal agents position themselves around the building. Marcus had worked through the night, and the state attorney general had fast-tracked the warrants because Shaw's case connected to an ongoing investigation into rural bank fraud. They've been watching him for months, Sheriff Rodriguez explained, joining them on the sidewalk. Your father's evidence was the missing piece they needed to move. Shaw's black sedan pulled into the bank parking lot right on schedule. He climbed out with his usual confidence, but today felt different. Inside the bank, Shaw sat behind his desk like he owned the world. I'm glad you came to your senses, Dakota. $200,000 is generous for land that'll be mine either way. Actually, Vernon, I brought you something. Dakota placed a thick folder on Shaw's desk. Every illegal transaction you've made for 3 years, recorded conversations, falsified documents, kickbacks from development companies. Shaw's confidence cracked as he flipped through the evidence, but he recovered quickly. This is all forged. Amateur hour fabrication. He reached for his phone. I have friends in the state capitol who will prove these documents are fake. Go ahead and call them. Shaw dialed a number, his voice getting louder as he spoke. This is Vernon Shaw. I need Senator Morrison's office immediately. Some kid is trying to frame me with bogus paperwork. He paused, listening. Then his face went pale. What do you mean he's unavailable for comment? Sheriff Rodriguez stepped into the office. Dakota tensed, unsure whose side the sheriff would take. Rodriguez had always seemed friendly with Shaw, and local politics could be complicated. Vernon Shaw, the sheriff said formally, you're under arrest for bank fraud, conspiracy, and violation of federal lending regulations. Shaw's phone clattered to the desk. Rodriguez, you can't be serious. I'm a pillar of this community. Your friends in the state capitol are exactly who ordered your arrest, Rodriguez replied, producing handcuffs. Turns out they don't appreciate being connected to bank fraud investigations. Through the bank's front windows, Dakota could see federal agents entering the building with boxes for evidence collection. Shaw tried one last desperate move, lunging for his computer keyboard, but Earl stepped forward and calmly closed the laptop. Your father saw this day coming 3 years ago, Earl said quietly. He knew you wouldn't stop with just his ranch. As Shaw was led away in handcuffs, he turned back to Dakota with pure venom in his voice. You think you've won something, but there's always another Vernon Shaw waiting for his chance. People like you don't keep what you don't understand. Dakota watched through the window as Shaw was placed in the federal vehicle. Maybe, but now I know how my father thought. 6 months later, Dakota stood in the same barn where everything began. The steady hum of natural gas extraction equipment confirmed his father's projections had been conservative. The ranch was not only debt-free but generating more revenue than 4 generations of cattle ranching combined. Rusty lay sleeping peacefully in the exact spot where he had once dug frantically, as if he knew his mission was complete. Cordelia joined Dakota at the window, watching the sunset over land that now included 5 connected properties. They said your father had left you just debts, she said softly. Dakota smiled, running his hand along the floorboards that had hidden his inheritance. They were wrong about a lot of things. If you enjoyed this story, click the video on your screen now to watch another unforgettable tale where family secrets change everything. Don't forget to subscribe and consider a super chat to help us keep bringing you more stories like these. Your support means everything to us.